The city lay in ruins. Broken buildings leaned like wounded giants. Smoke drifted from collapsed rooftops, and the air smelled of dust and burned metal. The streets were filled with scattered debris, shattered glass, broken wood, and torn banners that once carried the mark of the empire, now reduced to ash. It was a place of silence mixed with footsteps, where crowds of aliens walked quickly past destruction, their faces blank, their eyes empty. And in the middle of that street stood a little girl. Her hair was pale like sunlight through smoke. Her large eyes shimmered with tears, and her small hands pressed tightly against her chest. She was not human. Her ears were long and pointed, her skin faintly glowing under the weak daylight. Beside her, on a piece of broken cardboard, lay a woman who did not move. Her mother. The girl's cries echoed through the ruined street, soft, at first, then louder, filled with fear. "Please, someone help, my mom won't wake up." The words carried through the air, but no one stopped. Dozens of people, traders, workers, even soldiers, walked past her as if she were invisible. Some glanced her way, their eyes cold, but then they turned away, pretending not to hear. Others muttered that it wasn't their problem, that weakness was a burden. To them, the child was just another orphan of war, not worth their time or risk. Girl's tears fell onto the dusty ground, her small voice breaking. "Please, don't leave us." But the street kept moving. The world around her did not care. Then, among the silent crowd, one figure slowed. It was a man, different from the others. His features were sharp, his skin unlike theirs, his stance wary but strong. He was human. Where others kept their eyes forward, his gaze fell on the girl. He stopped. For a moment, he simply stood there, torn between moving on like everyone else or listening to the cry that stabbed at his chest. His name was Daniel, a traveler who had wandered across too many battlefields. He had seen suffering before, seen people left behind. He had promised himself not to get involved again, not to pick fights that were not his, not to carry weights that were not his own. But as he looked at the girl, clutching her chest and crying for her mother, something inside him refused to let him walk away. He took a step closer. The child noticed him at once, her wide, tear-filled eyes locking onto his. Hope flickered across her face, fragile and desperate. She reached out a trembling hand as if afraid he too would ignore her. "Please, help her." Daniel knelt beside the woman lying still on the cardboard. She was pale, her breathing shallow, her pulse weak. He touched her wrist gently, then pressed a hand against her neck. There was life, but only just. He looked around, expecting someone else to step in, someone with medical knowledge, someone with responsibility. But the crowd only stared from a distance, whispering, waiting, unwilling to act. "Why won't anyone help?" Daniel muttered under his breath. The girl's hands clutched his sleeve, her small voice shaking. "Everyone says we are not worth saving. They say we are cursed. Please don't leave us too." The words hit him harder than he expected. Not worth saving. He looked at the child, then at the mother. He could leave. It would be easy to blend back into the crowd, to tell himself this was not his fight. But deep inside, he knew he would never forgive himself if he turned away. Daniel lifted the woman slightly, checking her breathing again. "She needs rest. Maybe medicine. She's not gone yet." His voice was calm, steady, though his heart raced. The girl's tears slowed. She clung to him as if he were her last hope. Around them, the whispers grew louder. Aliens pointed, murmuring with disbelief. Some shook their heads, saying the human was a fool for interfering. Others muttered warnings that helping them would bring trouble. But Daniel ignored them all. The silence of the crowd felt heavier than the ruins around them. It was as if the whole city had forgotten what it meant to care. And yet in that moment, one human broke the silence. One human chose compassion where others chose indifference. Daniel looked into the girl's eyes, his voice low but certain. "I'm not leaving you, not now." For the first time, the child's lips curved into the smallest smile, fragile but real. She whispered softly, Thank you. And in that instant, something changed. A single act of kindness, small as it seemed, began to ripple through the cold silence of the street. No one knew it yet. Not the child, not the human, not even the empire that had crushed this world. But history had shifted. The galaxy itself would one day remember this moment, when the tears of one alien girl moved only one human to stop, and everything began to change. The street remained heavy with silence even after Daniel knelt beside the girl's mother. Crowds still passed, their faces cold, their eyes looking anywhere but here. To them, compassion was weakness, and weakness had no place in the Empire's streets. Yet Daniel stayed, his hand still resting on the faint pulse of the woman lying before him. The child gripped his sleeve tightly, her voice trembling. Please, don't leave us. Her words echoed inside Daniel's chest. He had heard many voices before, soldiers shouting in war, strangers bargaining in markets, leaders giving orders. But none cut him so deeply as this little girl's plea. He could almost hear his own conscience answering back, "If you walk away now, you will be no different from the rest." He sighed and glanced at the mother again. Her breathing was shallow but steady. She was alive, but barely. He scanned the street, searching for anyone willing to help. A healer, a medic, anyone with knowledge. But no one came forward. The onlookers only whispered, some mocking him, others warning him to step away before trouble found him too. Daniel frowned. "Why is everyone acting like this?" he muttered, aloud. "Why does no one care?" The girl's grip tightened. She shook her head sadly. "They fear the patrols. They say my people are cursed. Helping us brings punishment." Daniel's stomach twisted. He had seen cruel systems before, worlds where fear kept people silent. But to see a child abandoned in plain sight, begging in tears while everyone turned their backs, that was something he couldn't ignore. He looked the girl in the eye. "What's your name?" Her small voice wavered. "Sira." He nodded softly. "All right, Sira. I'll help your mother. I promise." The words slipped out before he could stop them. But once spoken, he felt the weight of them settle onto his shoulders. It wasn't just a promise to her. It was a vow to himself. Carefully, he lifted the woman's head slightly, tearing a strip of cloth from his own sleeve to place beneath her neck so she could breathe easier. He checked her pulse again, steady but weak. "She needs rest, food, maybe medicine," he whispered. Sira's eyes filled with fresh tears, though this time they were mixed with relief. "You're the only one who stopped. Everyone else just looked away." Daniel glanced at the passing crowd, his jaw tightening. They looked at him now with suspicion, some even with anger, as if his act of kindness were an insult to their silence. Yet he did not waver. He adjusted the woman gently, then looked back at the child. "I can't carry her forever. Is there anywhere safe?" Sira shook her head. "No place is safe for us. The patrols take people like my mother away. Sometimes they never come back." Daniel's eyes narrowed. Patrols, the Empire's soldiers. That explained the fear in the crowd, the whispers, the coldness. Helping Sira's family wasn't just seen as foolish. It was dangerous. And as if summoned by the thought, the sound of boots struck the ground nearby, heavy, metallic, marching in unison. The crowd shifted suddenly, parting in silence. From the far end of the street, armored figures appeared, the Empire's patrols, tall, broad, faceless behind black helmets. Their weapons glowed faintly in the smoky air. The leader's voice cut through the silence, harsh and commanding. "What is this?" he barked, pointing at the woman on the ground. "Why does she still breathe?" The crowd lowered their heads, saying nothing. The leader's gaze fell on Daniel, still kneeling beside Sira and her mother. His voice darkened. "Human, step away from the refuse. She is not your concern." Daniel froze, his fists clenching. His instinct screamed at him to avoid trouble. The smart move would be to Stand, walk away, let the patrol handle it. But when he looked at Sierra, her tiny hands gripping his sleeve, her wide eyes begging silently for him not to move, he knew the decision had already been made. The leader's voice grew sharper. Did you not hear me? Stand down, or you will share their fate. The crowd held its breath, waiting. Some shook their heads in pity, others whispered that the human was foolish to defy them, but Daniel did not move. He stood slowly, his body shielding the girl and her mother. His voice came steady, low, but firm. She's not refuse. She's alive. And I won't let you harm her. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Whispers spread, like fire. A human defying the patrols? Madness. Suicide. And yet there he stood, unshaken. The leader's armored hand tightened around his weapon. You dare? Daniel's jaw set. His heart pounded, but he did not back down. I dare. Behind him, Sierra whispered through trembling lips as if speaking to herself but meant for him alone. You really won't leave us. And in that moment, as the patrols stepped forward and the crowd scattered in fear, Daniel understood. This wasn't just about one child or her mother. This was about choosing to stand when no one else would. It was the choice that would change everything. The street grew silent as the patrol stepped closer. Their armored boots struck the ground with heavy rhythm, echoing through the ruins like drums of war. Every passerby lowered their heads, pulling away into the shadows, unwilling to be caught, near what was about to unfold. Daniel stood tall, but his heart pounded against his chest. Behind him, Sierra clutched his arm tighter, her small body shaking with fear. Her mother lay weak on the ground, her shallow breaths almost lost in the noise. Daniel knew he had no time, yet he could not turn away. The patrol leader raised his weapon, pointing it toward the mother. His voice was flat, cold, practiced. She is weak. Dead weight. Not worth resources. Step aside, human. Daniel's fists clenched. He wanted to scream at the cruelty, at the way they spoke as if life was something to throw away. But he forced himself to stay calm. His voice came steady. She is alive, and I won't let you kill her. Gasps rippled through the crowd hiding in the alleys. A human defying the patrols? Madness. Some whispered that he would be executed within moments. Others muttered that perhaps this foolishness would spark punishment for them all. The leader's helmet tilted slightly, studying Daniel. You dare speak against the Empire? Daniel's jaw tightened. He did not move. The patrol leader gave a sharp signal, and 2 soldiers stepped forward. Their weapons hummed with energy, light reflecting off their black armor. One aimed at Daniel while the other aimed at Sierra. The crowd turned away, unable to watch. Sierra's grip on Daniel's sleeve trembled, but her voice broke through the silence. Don't let them take us. Please. Those words cut through Daniel's hesitation. He had promised her, and Daniel was a man who kept his word no matter the cost. When the first soldier lunged forward, Daniel moved. He grabbed the edge of the weapon and slammed it aside, forcing the energy bolt into the wall. Sparks exploded, the smell of burning stone filling the air. The soldier staggered, surprised by the sudden resistance. The crowd gasped again. No one fought the patrols. No one. Yet here was a human, standing against them without fear. The second soldier raised his rifle to fire at Sierra, but Daniel stepped between them, his body shielding the girl. You'll have to go through me first, he growled. The leader's voice thundered. Fool! Do you think you can protect them against the Empire? Daniel didn't answer. He didn't need to. His stance, his glare, his defiance. It was answer enough. The soldiers attacked again. Daniel dodged, grabbing a broken metal pipe from the ground. He swung it with desperate strength, striking one soldier across the helmet. The impact rang like a bell, forcing the soldier back a step. But the other pressed forward, slamming him hard in the ribs. Pain shot through his chest, but Daniel refused to fall. Sierra cried out, reaching for him, but Daniel shouted, "Stay back." His voice carried more strength than he felt, but it was enough to steady her. The leader raised his hand again, ready to command the patrol to finish it. But in that moment something changed. The crowd, who had stayed silent until now, began to stir. Whispers grew louder. They had seen humans before, but never like this. Never one who would stand for others when the Empire demanded silence. "Why? Does he fight?" one voice murmured. "He is only one man," another said. "And yet, he does not fall." The doubt spread like fire. For the first time, the cold silence of the street began to crack. Daniel felt his arms weakening, the pipe slipping in his grip. He couldn't fight forever. His body screamed with pain, his lungs burned, but his spirit held. He looked at the soldiers before him, then at the trembling child behind him. His voice came out low, but unbreakable. "You can call me fool, you can strike me down, but know this: I will not move, not while they live." The words rang through the street like thunder. Even the soldiers hesitated, taken aback by the conviction in his tone. The leader tilted his head, considering. For a long moment, no one moved. The air was heavy, the silence sharp as a blade. Then finally he gave a signal. The soldiers lowered their weapons, though their stance remained tense. "Very well, human," the leader said coldly. "But mercy has a price. The Empire will remember your defiance, and it will not be forgotten." With that, the patrol turned, their armored boots striking the ground as they marched back into the distance. The crowd exhaled as if they had all been holding their breath. Their whispers now carried a different tone, not scorn, but awe. Daniel dropped the pipe, his hands trembling, his chest heaving. He turned to Sira, who stared at him with wide eyes, tears still fresh on her cheeks. She whispered, almost afraid to believe it. "You didn't leave us. You really stayed." Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder, steady and warm. "I told you, Sira, I don't leave people behind." And as he looked at the frightened child and her weakened mother, he realized something deep inside him had shifted. This wasn't just a moment. This was a beginning. The shadows of danger had not passed. They had only grown longer. But Daniel knew now. He had chosen his side. The patrol's heavy footsteps faded into the distance, but Daniel knew it wasn't over. Their words still echoed in his ears. "The Empire will remember your defiance." He had bought a little time, nothing more. Sira pressed close to him, her small hands trembling, while her mother lay weak and unmoving. The crowd, which had whispered in awe at his stand, now quickly scattered, afraid of being linked to what had just happened. Soon, only silence remained. Daniel knelt again, checking the mother's breathing. It was faint, but steady. Relief touched him for a moment, but he knew she would not last long without care. He muttered under his breath, "She needs help I can't give." Sira's wide eyes searched his face. Will she die?" Daniel hesitated. He had seen enough death to know the answer could be yes, but looking at the fragile hope in the child's eyes, he forced himself to answer differently. "Not if I can stop it." He lifted the woman into his arms. She was light, too light, her body frail from hunger and sickness. Sira clung to his side as they moved through the narrow alleys away from the open street. Daniel's mind raced. He needed a plan. He needed medicine, food, and somewhere safe from the Empire's eyes. But where could he find that in a city that already saw the Yao girl and her people as cursed? As they turned a corner, Daniel spotted movement in the shadows. Figures cloaked in ragged cloth, their faces hidden. At first he thought they were beggars, but then he saw the glint of weapons beneath their cloaks. His grip on the woman tightened. One of them stepped forward, his voice low. "Human. Hand them over. You don't know what you carry." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "And you are?" The man's hood tilted slightly. "Survivors. Rebels. Call us what you will. That woman is marked. The Empire hunts her. Carry her, and you carry death." Daniel adjusted his stance, keeping Sira close behind him. "I already carry death. I've seen it too many times, but I won't hand her over." The rebel's voice hardened. Then you are either brave or foolish. Before more could be said, the sound of engines roared overhead. Searchlights cut through the dark sky, sweeping across the ruins. Daniel cursed under his breath. The Empire had returned quicker than he expected. The rebels vanished back into the shadows, leaving only their warning behind. Come, Daniel whispered to Sira, pulling her forward. They ran through the alleys, his arms aching under the weight of her mother. Behind them, armored boots struck the ground once more. Closer, this time louder. The Empire wasn't searching blindly, they were hunting. Daniel ducked into a half-collapsed warehouse, slipping into the darkness. He set the woman down gently and pressed a finger to his lips, signaling Sira to stay quiet. She nodded, clutching, her hands together tightly. The warehouse creaked under the wind, shadows stretching long across the cracked floor. Daniel peered through a broken window, watching as the searchlights drew nearer. Soldiers moved with mechanical precision, scanning every corner, tearing open doors, dragging away anyone they suspected of hiding. Sira whispered so softly he almost didn't hear. Why do you do this? We are not your people. You don't owe us anything. Daniel looked at her, his face hard but his voice gentle. Because no one else will. Because I know what it feels like to be abandoned. His eyes darkened with memory, but he said nothing more. The sound of metal scraping pulled him back to the present. The warehouse door groaned as it was forced open. A beam of light cut across the floor, landing on the broken crates just feet away. Daniel's hand closed around a rusted metal bar lying nearby. He raised it slowly, his muscles tense, ready to fight again. His heart hammered, but his mind was steady. If they found them, he would not surrender. He had already made his choice. The soldiers stepped inside, their armor gleaming under the beam. Their weapons hummed as they searched the shadows. Daniel held his breath. Sira buried her face into her mother's side, trying not to cry. The soldiers moved closer, closer still. One of them kicked a crate aside, the crash echoing through the building. Daniel's grip on the bar tightened, his teeth clenched. And then, a distant explosion shook the ground. Flames lit the sky outside. The soldiers froze, their helmets turning toward the noise. Alarms blared across the city. Someone had attacked the patrols elsewhere. The soldiers shouted into their comms, then rushed out of the warehouse, their boots pounding into the distance. Silence returned. Daniel exhaled slowly, lowering the bar. Sira lifted her face, her eyes wide. Was that you? Daniel shook his head. No, someone else is fighting the Empire tonight. But deep inside, he knew this was no coincidence. The Empire's grip was slipping and sparks of resistance were breaking out. His small act of defiance had not gone unseen. It had already begun to ripple. He looked at the weak woman lying on the ground, then at the child who refused to let go of his sleeve. His choice was already made. Whether he wanted it or not, he was part of this now, and the conflict was only rising. The night was quiet after the chaos. Daniel sat in the broken warehouse, his back against a cold wall. Sira pressed close to him, and her mother lying weak beside them. The air smelled of smoke and dust, but for the moment no soldiers came. The city outside was restless, filled with alarms and distant shouts, yet here in the shadows time seemed to pause. Daniel looked at the child. She hadn't let go of his sleeve since the moment he stopped to help her. Her wide eyes were fixed on her mother, silently begging her to wake. Daniel's chest tightened at the sight. He had seen many faces of war, but the innocence of a child always broke through his walls. Finally, he spoke softly. Sira, I need to know, who is your mother? Why are they so determined to take her? The girl hesitated. Her lips trembled, as though speaking the truth would bring danger even here. But then she whispered, They fear her. Because of what she is. Because of what I am. Daniel leaned closer. What do you mean? Sira's voice was low, almost like a secret carried by the wind. My mother was once a leader. Not of armies, not of soldiers, but of hope. She spoke against the Empire when no one else dared. She carried the voice of our people and they hated her for it. They hunted her, destroyed everything she built. They left her alive only to make her suffer, to watch her people fall. Daniel felt the weight of her words. He looked at the unconscious woman. Even now, weakened and broken, she carried a quiet dignity in her face, as though she was more than just another refugee. "And you?" he asked. Sira lowered her eyes. "I am her child, the last of her bloodline. They call me cursed because they fear what I could become. They say if my mother's spirit lives in me, then one day I will rise and bring others with me. That is why they want me gone. That is why no one helps." Daniel's breath caught. A fallen leader. A bloodline. The Empire feared. A child marked not for who she was, but for what she might grow into. Suddenly everything made sense. The patrol's cruelty, the crowd's silence, even the rebels' warning. This was bigger than one dying woman and her daughter. This was about control, about silencing the last ember of resistance before it could burn again. For a long moment, Daniel didn't speak. He stared at the mother, then at the girl clinging to him. The galaxy was wide and its problems endless. He had always told himself not to get involved, not to carry weights too heavy for one man. But here, now, in the quiet of the broken warehouse, he realized the truth. He was already involved. He had made his choice the moment he stopped in the street. Sira's voice broke the silence. "You regret helping us?" Daniel looked at her, his eyes steady. "No. I regret not being able to do more." Her tears shimmered in the dim light. For the first time since he met her, she gave him a fragile smile. "Then you are not like the others." Daniel leaned his head back against the wall, his thoughts heavy. The galaxy would not forgive him for this. The Empire would not forget his defiance. But as he looked at the child who trusted him with everything, and the mother whose life still hung by a thread, he knew there was no turning back. He whispered to himself, almost like a vow. "If the Empire fears you, then I will protect you. If they call you cursed, then I will prove them wrong. You won't face this alone." Outside, the distant thunder of engines shook the ground. The Empire was searching. The rebels were moving. The city was caught in a storm. And at the heart of it all was a child whose tears had called out to one human and changed his path forever. The truth was now clear. This wasn't just about saving a mother and her daughter. This was about saving the last spark of a people who refused to be erased, and Daniel had chosen to stand with them. The warehouse was silent, but Daniel knew silence was only a disguise. Outside, the city was alive with searchlights and patrols, the Empire tightening its grip, determined to erase even the memory of the woman and her child. The faint pulse of the mother and the frightened hope in Sira's eyes pressed heavily on him. His choices had led him here, and now there was no turning back. He rose to his feet and looked at the girl. "We can't stay. The Empire will come again. If your mother has a chance, we need to move." Sira's eyes widened. "But where? There's no safe place left." Daniel adjusted his jacket, his voice steady. "Safe doesn't exist anymore. Only forward. We'll find a way." He lifted the woman again, her fragile weight feeling heavier than any weapon he had carried. Sira followed close, clutching his sleeve as though letting go would mean losing everything. Together they slipped back into the ruined streets, shadows hiding their steps. But the Empire was already waiting. Armored soldiers blocked the path ahead, their black visors glowing in the smoke. Behind them, the towering figure of a commander stepped forward, his voice carrying across the silence. "Human, you defied us once. There will not be a second time. Hand over the woman and the child." Daniel stood still, his arms tightening around the mother. His heart raced, but his voice came strong. "No." The commander's laugh was low and cruel. "You think you matter? You are one man. We are the Empire. We crush entire worlds, and you believe you can stand against us?" Daniel shifted his stance, setting the woman gently against the wall. He turned to face the soldiers directly, the weight of his decision clear in his eyes. I'm not standing against you for me, I'm standing for her, for the child, for everyone you've silenced. The commander raised his hand. The soldiers leveled their weapons. The street filled with the hum of energy ready to fire. Sierra gasped, pressing against her mother, tears spilling down her face. And then something happened the commander did not expect. The crowd, hidden in the alleys and ruins, began to stir. The same people who had turned their backs now stepped forward, their whispers rising into voices. They had seen the human stand alone, they had seen his defiance. And now they felt something they hadn't felt in years: courage. One voice shouted, "He's right." Another, "No more silence." And then dozens more, rising together, "No more." The commander froze as the crowd closed in, not with weapons but with will. Their fear was breaking, replaced by anger and hope. For the first time, the Empire's power faltered, not because of numbers, not because of weapons, but because one human had dared to act when no one else would. Daniel lifted the metal bar he carried like a blade. His voice thundered across the street. You call yourselves powerful because you rule with fear, but fear ends here. You want her? You'll have to go through me. And now, through all of us. The soldiers hesitated. Their weapons hummed, but their resolve wavered as the crowd surged forward, no longer silent, no longer broken. The commander barked orders, but the tide had shifted. In the chaos, Daniel struck first, swinging the bar into the nearest soldier. Sparks flew as armor cracked. The crowd roared, stones and fists rising against the soldiers. For the first time, the patrol was outnumbered, not in weapons but in spirit. The commander tried to cut through, but Daniel blocked his path, their eyes locking in the smoky haze. You should have let them live, Daniel growled. The commander raised his weapon, but Daniel's strike landed first, fueled not by strength but by fury. The man in black armor fell to the ground, his weapon clattering into the dust. The remaining soldiers retreated, their formation breaking as the people pressed forward. The street, once silent with fear, now roared with defiance. Daniel dropped the bar, his chest heaving. He turned back to Sierra and her mother. The child rushed into his arms, her tears now mixed with hope. You didn't leave us, she whispered. Daniel placed a hand gently on her head. I never will. The mother stirred faintly, her eyes opening for just a moment. She looked at Daniel, weak but aware. Her lips formed silent words, thank you. And in that fragile moment, Daniel understood. This wasn't just about saving one family. His choice had sparked something far greater. The crowd around him was no longer silent. Their whispers had become shouts, their fear had turned into fire. The Empire would not fall in a single night, but its shadow had been pierced. And it all began with one human who chose to stop when everyone else walked away. As dawn broke through the smoke-filled sky, Daniel looked at the child who clung to him, at the mother who still breathed, and at the people who now stood with him. The galaxy would remember this night, not for the Empire's cruelty, but for the moment compassion turned into resistance. The mistake the Empire had made was simple. They believed one man couldn't matter, but one man had answered a child's tears, and that choice had changed the galaxy.